So, welcome to Boxing Media Hub. And yes, we are sponsored by Falcon Contracting and boxbets.co.uk. And I've got a special guest with me now. I've got Scott Cujo Sigmon. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing fine.
Good. Thank you very much for coming on. It's coming up for a busy time for you. Another fight, not too far away.
Yeah, hopefully it's the last fight. You know, I always say that. I've been saying that for like 9 years now. I think I've been retiring after every fight, but this is one. I was very content with my last victory over Nick Kisner, a former 8-time national amateur champion. He had defeated me several years previous, and I beat him for one of these WBC titles, U.S. titles back here on the wall. It was an unfortunate, I was winning the fight, but he tore his bicep. So the fight was cut a little short in the second round. But, when you've been around as long as I have, this is going to be my 55th fight. You take it how you can get it. My younger fighter, he was like, man, you've got to be disappointed. He's 13-0. I was like, don't worry, Austin, you hang around this long enough, you'll appreciate the easy ones too.
Yeah. As you say, especially for a title as well, you think you're going in potentially into a dogfight when you're in those title matches. And unfortunately, as you say, it happened for him, it can happen to anyone, can't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've been, the only difference is I'll say, and I like Nick. Nick is one of my friends, and he's obviously fought at very high levels in the sport. And I mean, I'm sure he knew it was going to be bad for him, but I've torn my labrum against Kelly Pavlik. I broke my ribs early on against Caleb Truax, 2 world champions. I mean, multitudes of injuries against undefeated fighters early in fights, and I fought through it. So I mean, I can't fault Nick because I know it was going to be hard, just the pressure that I bring to keep me away from him with one arm. But, I personally would have fought with one bicep.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And I think there's so many critics out there, isn't there, that have never stepped foot in a ring, that turn around and go, oh, he's quit. Oh, he's bowed out here, and yet they've never been in that situation themselves. So it's very difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I teach these young fighters in my gym too, right? So, like, if I say something, let's say we're watching a fight with Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence or someone like that, and, I critique them, then I'll say, but I've never been at that level, right? Because these guys, I mean, I've got a lot of experience, but I've never stepped in that echelon with at least a chance to win. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if I have a 4-round fighter in here, a guy with 20 amateur fights, and he's like, "Oh, I would have done it," yeah, no, you wouldn't have. I mean, it's a whole different ball game in the deep end of the pool.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, if you have a loss, you either learn from it or you have another loss, basically, don't you? You try and adjust as you move along. I think that's the journey with boxing, isn't it? That you've got to learn quick, haven't you?
I think so, and I think one of the other issues that I've noticed with mid-level to lower-level fighters that keeps them from ascending in the sport at all is they're lying to themselves, and they surround themselves with people that are lying to them, and you can't improve. There was a fighter out of my gym, very good fighter, lost his debut. It was really close, and I remember going in the fourth. I was like, "Hey, man, you got to win this round." And he still, to this day, he's got like 11 or 12 fights, and he hasn't really improved since then. And he has a lot of potential. He still, to this day, is sticking with the fact that guy had more fans in the crowd is why he lost the decision. And, I mean, if that was the case, I would have hardly ever lost. I mean, I've got a good following.
Yes. Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? It's definitely an interesting way of looking at things. Yeah. And as Jam's saying, some top guys on your resume: Roy Jones Jr., Caleb Truax. Yeah, well, let's be honest, some absolute cracking fights you've been in over the years. But as you say, you've tried to retire however many amount of times. But you're a boxer. Do you ever really, truly retire in your heart because you're a boxer?
I mean, I I really hope to. I mean, my last camp, and my wife's even said this, every camp I start, at some point I'm like, man, I never want to do this again. And I certainly feel like I've overstayed my welcome. I had my first hard sparring session, my first real sparring session in 6 months with a 3-0 fighter the other day. A very hungry young fighter. And, I really thought I was just going to walk the dog on him. And I mean, I certainly, controlled it. But, these young guys, man, they got that fire, they're unbreakable. And I just hated every minute of it. And I don't want to say, like, I'm not saying that I'm not excited for this fight, because this, to me, Dusty Harrison is a legacy fight for me. I certainly think it's an attainable win for me, and it would be the biggest win that I've ever had in my career if I can defeat Dusty Harrison. So that's, it's very exciting for me.
Because he's a major name to take on for your last fight. An unbeaten fighter. What is he? 7 years younger as well. That's
Yeah.
a hell of a fight to pick, Scott.
Well, and I'm the promoter. This is my hometown, and I want to bring him in. And that's the other thing, that's weird in boxing, especially on like the regional level. Everyone says, oh, Scott's record is padded. Well, I'm not sure how you can say that. I fought the former heavyweight champion of the world, one of the greatest middleweight champions to ever draw breath. And I'm picking a guy that I think he was 166-31 as an amateur. He's 36-0-1 as a professional. And I mean, I think he's fought at Madison Square Garden twice. So, I mean, this is certainly, I love being close to the fire. I like the pressure of it. I like the fear of knowing that I could lose. I'm 20 wins, 0 losses in the state of Virginia. I believe I'm 8 wins, 0 losses in my home city of Lynchburg. And so, Dusty's 36-0. He hasn't lost as a professional, but he's also got to overcome those things statistically as well. I'm a very good performer at home.
Yeah. As I say, I've had Dusty on the channel as well, like a while back, and he comes across as a really nice, genuine guy. But obviously, you two seem to have sparked something between you. Do you want to go into it a little bit? It seems to it's been a real battle, isn't it?
Well, he's been pretty quiet, but that's because I think he knows he's wrong. I've always loved Dusty. I've loved his father. I've always been drawn to him as a person. He's a gym owner. He's a trainer. He's a manager. He's a matchmaker. He's a promoter. And, of course, he's a fighter. And, I went to him in September of last year. I was calling this fight. I was part of the commentary team. It was very exciting to see his comeback fight, especially after all the things that he's went through. And I agree. I think he's a really down-to-earth guy. He understands boxing on an emotional level and also from every aspect of it. So I always liked talking to him because we could relate on so many things. And, I brought up the fact that I would fight again. And now you got to remember now I'm 220 pounds. I'm very heavy from, my days at 168. And, I brought up that I would really like to fight. And, he might have, I can't recall if he embraced me or like fist bumped me or something like that. But you know how he is. He's very infectious. He's got a good smile. He's like, yeah, man, that would be awesome. And, I'm a pretty good writer. So I wrote up a press release and then I let him read it. This was all in the locker room. And he's like, yeah, that's great. And I was like, all right, I'll share it after you fight, assuming that you win. And I shared it. And I had my graphics guy make a poster up over like a 3-hour period. And then he shared it later, the next day, I believe. And the promoter he's working with, River City Promotions up there, we were looking for venues in that area in Richmond, Virginia, which is maybe like 2 hours from him and an hour and a half from me for the middle. So 3 months goes by. We bumped into each other again in D.C. at an event. We hung out. We talked. He kept telling me how he was going to beat me. I told him I was going to beat him. But at this point, everything's still friendly. And then I realized that it wasn't going to come to fruition if it was in Richmond. So I mentioned to him and then the promotional team that he was working with that I would just promote it if it was necessary. And they were like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I don't know why you're not promoting it anyways. So I booked the venue. I booked a date with the commission. And Dusty and I had been basically in constant contact. He was very receptive. We had made a few fights on the show that had gotten canceled for some of my fighters. Maybe 5 or 6 days goes by, complete radio silence from Dusty. Now, I'm a matchmaker, so I mean, I know what that means. The guy is not going to fight. And, Dusty comes back. So I put him in a group chat and started texting him like, hey, man, what's going on? I'm putting him on blast. And then he comes back and he's like, man, what's wrong with you? Are you healthy? Are you well? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I've already expensed this money to get this fight ready that you've been telling me you're going to win so easy. And, he was pretty upset. And then he named his terms and I sent him the contract. 3 days goes by. Then his coach calls me. They ask for double the money, add this, add that, drop the weight, less rounds, whatever. I agreed to it. Then Dusty mentioned maybe we should just bet 20,000 straight up to each other for the fight. I was like, all right, that's cool. I mean, I'm fine with that. And then I didn't hear anything else about that again. Then they moved the weight down a little bit more, down to 170, which I've been fighting at 200, but my career, my heyday was at 68. So then he's got this little, I don't know what he is to him, a hype man or something. He's always around him. They're friends. He calls me right before the contract signs. Scott, man, we thought the fight, I can't remember the language he was using, but he basically said the fight they thought was a joke or I was playing around. I was like, so when I asked Dusty, you thought it was a joke? They were like, yeah, we didn't think you were serious. I was like, what about
you've gone through all these hoops, all these different situations and scenarios, and can you have this, can you have that? And then they just thought that it was kind of playing around the whole time.
Yeah. Well, what about when we were looking for the venues in Richmond? Oh, yeah, it was a joke. I was like, so when I sent that first contract, then, at that point, I said some things that I won't say on the podcast. So, then he signs the contract. And at that point, I would say our friendship is basically ruined. So a month goes by. He has one more fight that he and myself and his coach had spoke about. So he had that fight. I think it was January 6th or 9th, something like that. And then after the fight, he says, post on social media, I can't wait to see what's next. And also on this whole telecast, never mentioned my name, never mentioned the fight. And then his coach puts up, oh, we've got options, which they don't have options. They've already signed the fight with me. So I text his, the person at his point of contact is Coach Bruce Babashan. And I was trying to discuss what gloves that they wanted to wear, because I know, when you get 10 and 12 round fighters, they're picky about brands. I wanted to see if he was bringing it, if he wanted me to order them. And he was like, Scott, we're not sure about your event anymore. We're weighing our options. That's what he said. I screenshotted. I put it on social media.
But even though they'd already signed.
Yes. So then the coach said that what I took was out of context. How is that I don't understand how that could be out of context. So, my attorney reached out to those two, Bruce Babashan and Dusty Harrison, and he just had to give us reassurances. He spoke to my cornerman. He said I was a lunatic, that I was scared of him, that I couldn't make the weight, and that he was absolutely coming to fight. And so I'm sure you've noticed since that date, I've really calmed down. Now I'm focusing on getting ready for the fight. I'm just not going to sit here and lose 30 or 40 or 50 pounds and then him not show up. I mean, this is a huge promotion. We're already approaching 1,000 tickets sold. And on the regional level, I mean, that's a lot. Let's be honest. So, I mean, I don't want to lie to these fans. I mean, of course, I can always just bump up my 13-0 kid Austin Dion to the main event. But, I'd want to match him different if he's a main event. I want something that's going to push him to the limit. And this is the fight that people want to see. And these types of regional matchups haven't really been happening a lot the last few decades. And I mean, I think this is really positive for the sport. Like the person wrote earlier, Caleb Truax reached out to me, messaged me, said he thinks what I'm doing is so great for boxing that they need more regional guys like this to make these regional showdowns. And I mean, I agree with that. This is certainly good for the health of boxing. And, I'm not quite as angry now because I know he's showing up. So now I just got to, I have to do the monumental task of giving him his first defeat, which I'm sure is not going to be easy.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Is there any way that we can watch it here in the UK?
We have not worked out the streaming deal yet, but I imagine that Rocket Combat Sports will end up doing it. They've done my last few. So we won't really announce that until about 14 or 20 days before the fight once we get everything structured properly. But that should be on my Facebook timeline. They'll probably share the official link. Of course, only click the link that they share because the spam bots have gotten ridiculous on Facebook. So don't get swindled.
Yeah, no, 100% with that one. I'm absolutely buzzing for it. I've got massive respect for both of you. What you've done in the sport. As you say, massive respect for Dusty's dad and how Dusty's managed to come back after that is incredible in itself, as you can agree. But like Jam saying, it sounds like Dusty might be a little scared. But is that a fair comment, or do you think he just wanted to make sure everything was in place, or was there other people nattering that shouldn't have been?
I think that there could be some gamesmanship in it potentially. I'm not sure. I mean, that's a really weird flex. You're being too aggressive. I don't think I'm going to show up for this fight. That just seems kind of odd to me. I'm not sure. I think maybe once he agreed to it for the amount of money that he did, and then he started thinking about the money that he could make in boxing. He's definitely could earn way past six figures in a fight with his record and his resume. And I think knowing that he's coming here and risking it for much less, I think maybe after he agreed to it, maybe that could have maybe set in on him. I think he has respect for me, whether he admits it or not, or acts like it or not. I think he's got great boxing IQ also. So, I mean, it's hard to say what was going on. I think maybe at first when he was saying how easy it would be and he agreed to this amount of money, and then when the contract got there, then he started envisioning the way that I fight. And he was like, well, maybe this isn't worth this amount of money. Maybe it's worth this amount. I'm not sure. I'm not going to try to get super caught up in what Dusty is thinking. I'm just happy that he's showing up and that he's giving me the opportunity. And I'm going to train hard and fight as best I can. I turned 37 2 days after the fight. So what a birthday gift it would be to get a 36-0 on the resume with the W next to it.
Yeah, that'd be, be cracking anyway, wouldn't it? Let alone a good birthday gift. We got someone here who's turned around and said, good luck, Scott, on your fight. It's going to be a cracker. It's got all the ingredients, I think, this one. As you say, from both of you guys, of what you both bring to the table. Obviously, you can't give away what your game plan is. You've obviously looked into
Listen, I mean, everybody knows what I am. I mean, I fought the older version of Roy Jones, former heavyweight champ. I pressed him. I fought Kelly Pavlik, one of the highest knockout percentages in middleweight history. I pressed him. I'm gonna press him. I'm gonna come right after him. I think it's more intriguing of how Dusty decides to deal with it. People are like, oh, I think he's gonna try to catch and shoot and try to let you just shoot your wad. He's gonna move. He's gonna try to back you up. I mean, I'm gonna do what I do, and he's gonna do what he can do about it. I mean, it's not like I'm not gonna become some defensive magician overnight. And I mean, I'm 5'9". I think he's 6'1". I'm not going to keep him on the outside of the jab, right?
This is it. You use your advantage, don't you? If you're a guy that can work on the inside, you're not going to want to stay at range with a guy, that can do that. But then when I also, I know you said you weren't at that level, but when you look at like when we saw Canelo versus Callum Smith, Callum Smith a hell of a lot of a taller guy, rangy guy, and yet Canelo beat him to the jab, beat him to those sort of.
I think of the levels that they're above. I mean, now Callum Smith is certainly far more accomplished and a much greater fighter than I am, but he's not on the same level as Canelo Alvarez. I mean, Canelo could just do whatever he wanted. And just like he just fought Beterbiev, Callum Smith, I thought did a great job. But when you're in there and the guy is that many levels above you, you're going to break at some point. And we haven't got to get to see Dusty Harrison tested at the highest level. So really, I don't know what I'm getting into, right? I mean, I think Thomas Lamana is probably the best fight he's been against. And I have a lot of respect for Thomas, and Thomas is a great fighter. And I do hope that he does well. He's got a high WBA ranking again. I hope he does well and proves that he does belong there next fight. But when we look at Thomas Lamana, who I think Dusty might have beat him like 7-3, if I'm not mistaken. If we see Thomas Lamana when he got to the level that I've been at, the Kelly Pavliks, I went 7 rounds. Roy Jones Jr., I went all 10. I won 2. I went late in the fight with Ronald Gavril. If you see how I perform against that level, and then you see what Thomas Lamana did when he got to the highest level against Erislandy Lara, he got knocked out in the first round, 1 punch, lights out. And, it was hard for me. Like I said, I got a lot of respect for Thomas. So that was hard for me to watch. I really thought he was going to do better than that. But when we're talking about someone going to the deepest water, which I've done, I'm not a 1-punch knockout kind of guy. Like Lionel Thompson, great fighter. Now he starched me. I mean, he destroyed me. But it took him 7 rounds to break me. I'm not a 1-punch kind of guy. And Thomas Lamana fought him tight like a dog. So, I mean, what is Scott Sigmon going to do even at 37 years old, even weight drained? I think those are the kind of questions that Dusty Harrison is probably asking himself.
But we're sort of talking levels, though. Where do you put yourself level-wise in comparison to Dusty? Or are you at similar points because of the way, you're obviously coming towards the end of your career now. You've said that yourself. Dusty's trying to reignite the fire to go again, isn't he? So where do you both kind of sit?
Well, like I said, I think Dusty's kind of an unknown. He fought Mike Dallas, and I think Mike Dallas is a guy that might be at times a tick above me and got a draw. Although Dusty, he didn't deserve the draw in that fight. But it's like someone reached out to me. They were like, man, I hope you're not fighting Dusty in D.C. You'll need a knockout for a draw. But, I'm not fighting him in D.C. I'm fighting him in Virginia. But I actually, even though it's my home city and, my home state, I think there's drawbacks to that for me also, just because, the people are going to be so afraid they're being biased. They might actually go biased against me. And then on top of that, being the promoter. This isn't like the highest level of promotion where I have all this staff. I'm selling every ticket. I'm booking the ambulance. I'm doing the insurance. I'm doing all the matchmaking. So I actually think that may have been a calculated move on his part too, to force all this onto me. But I'm blessed, with a great staff here at the gym. Last week I stopped working, so I'm not going to do any work outside the show and training. So it's not like I'm going to be doing a full-time job on top of that. I'm taking this really serious. Everything that Dusty did, or if he was scared, if he wasn't, I don't know. But I'm taking this very serious.
Yeah. And as I say, I cannot wait for this fight. I genuinely, if we get the opportunity to see this is going to be one that, the UK fans love. It's, as I say, it's got all the ingredients for a great fight that people love to see. And we don't see enough of these fights, as you say, your final dance, and you've picked a hell of a partner to do it with.
Hopefully.
Well, again.
After the 4th swan song, I had to stop saying that was the end, right?
So how many times have you technically retired? Is it 4?
Probably, I think it's 4 times I've announced it before the fight. So I mean, like I said, this is hopefully. Um,
Your wife must just think, oh no, he said it again.
I think she believes this is it. I do. I mean, I've asked her. I mean, of course. So there's
But
been.
what makes this any different, Scott? Let's be honest. What makes this any different? If you said it before, people are going to think, right, okay, he's going to be back.
I don't want to do the diet. I don't want to do the training. I don't want to do the sparring. I only like to fight and the paycheck. And I mean, that's fine. A lot of people do, but those guys, are 30-30 or what. I mean, I'm not saying I got a pretty record or anything. I mean, it's not pretty. It's like something from like the 60s or 70s that people would respect. I'm kind of a dying breed, just keep going back into deep water. I just don't want to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. I mean, Dusty, this is a special circumstance that got me excited. And a couple of people have mentioned to me, I think they're on the outskirts of Jake Paul. And I know they've kind of floated the idea down the road of me fighting him. And I mean, it's a lot of money. It's more money than I've made against anyone else. And I don't think that I can bring myself to fight him just because I don't think that I can put the energy in. I had gotten burned out and I fought in the triad. I'm not sure if you've seen that. It's like a triangle. It was on Triller. And I didn't want to fight. I had already basically checked out, and they just kept offering me more money. And about 10 days before the fight, they offered me the second highest payday of my career to go fight 7 2-minute rounds against this former UFC guy who actually was a great boxer, had way more amateur fights than me. And I went there, and during the first round, I realized I could make it competitive and probably win the fight. But I realized if I fought this pace, that's all we were going to do. And that's what I did. And I kind of checked out. I gave up on myself. It was the first time I've ever done that in a fist fight. And for 2 years, I just had that regret. And that's why I came back and fought Nick. The regret made me do it. That was pretty much it. And it wouldn't matter if I could buy a house or 2 houses after a fight. I don't ever want to feel like that again. And if I went in after this fight, I would strictly be doing it just for the money. Now, I know it's crazy. I always tell everybody it's all about the money. It is. It's prize fighting. It really is all about the money. But you have to want to win. And I think after this is the last time, because like sparring that young guy the other day, I was telling you about a spar, and I realized that I was going to have to want it. And I did. I made myself want it. I have to agree to pay the price to win the fight. And I feel like in my soul, this is the last time that I'm willing to pay the price to win the fight. So if you see me in the ring again after this, it's just going to be sad. It's going to be sad for me on an emotional and spiritual level.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think Jam says it all here. 37, 15, and 1 record is not bad considering the opponents, especially he's been in with, and would love to see you fight with Jake Paul. I think anyone would just like you to knock Jake Paul out. I think that's the biggest thing, Scott. More than anything.
I think my feelings towards Jake are probably different than a lot of the people on the outside. I mean, I see a lot of people hate Jake, but I mean, I just, this show gets canceled that he was doing for whatever reason. I can't recall. He paid all the undercard fighters. He secures Amanda Serrano, one of the biggest paydays ever. He's got this kid, Warner Walton, and he's moving him. I've had several offers for my heavyweight to fight on his cards, and the way that they negotiate and the way that they treat people and the amount of money that they pay. And just, he does say some outlandish things as a promoter, but when you look at what he's really doing, I think he is a great ambassador and advocate for the sport. I love what he's doing, and I have nothing but respect for him. I mean, if my 13-0 kid, if Top Rank, MVP, and Mayweather reached out, I mean, it would be hard not to pick MVP just because, I mean, they're treating every fighter they get like world champ, like they believe in them. If you look, most of boxing at this point is a going out of business sale. They're just trying to get money as quick as they can. And I feel like MVP's the opposite. Like they're investing into these fighters. They're investing into the future. And I think when Jake Paul is done with his fighting career, if he so chooses to, he'll probably be one of the top promoters, if not the top promoter in the world with boxing. So I'm thankful for Jake Paul. Although if I fought him, I'd want to knock him out.
I like how you had that in at the end. But no, I agree with you in so many ways. The fact that yeah, he might be, as you say, a bit outlandish with comments and stuff like that, but he's a promoter. That he's got to sell the event. He's got to sell the fight. He's going to cause a scene. He's going to cause disruption to make people get eyes on it. And that's what a lot of promoters do. They just do it in different ways. But you know, I think he's I think he has done great stuff, as you say, for Amanda Serrano especially. I think he's been brilliant in that respect. You can love him or hate him, but I think you have to respect him for what he does. I think that's the main thing. But as I say, Scott, I wish you all the best. I hope you and Dusty both come out of it in good health. I think that's the main thing with any fight. And yeah, massive respect to both of you guys for taking this. And as I say, hopefully we get to see it over here. And yeah, good luck to you both.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
No, and as I say, love to the family and good luck with everything else that you do, all the fingers in pies that you're involved with and you're up to. I wish you all the best, my friend.
I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Stay in touch and speak to you soon. Follow Scott on all of his socials and yeah, get ready for the link that gets put out and keep up to date with everything he's doing. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you, Joe.
Take care.